It was 6:43 a.m. when I realized I'd been publicly executed in digital effigy. I hadn't even made coffee yet. Still in bed, phone charging on the nightstand, when the first ding hit. Then another. Then 12. Group chats lighting up like a Christmas tree. First one from Dave. "Are you okay, man? What's all this about?" Then from my niece, of all people, "Uncle Greg. What did you do?" I blinked, sat up, opened Instagram, and there she was, Rachel. My wife, soon-to-be ex if we're playing technicalities. Swollen red eyes. Blankets bunched around her like some cinematic refugee. A carousel of photos, all staged in dim bedroom light, like she'd just finished crying over the wreckage of our marriage. Captioned with vague, weaponized heartbreak. "When the person you trust most becomes the one who breaks you." And underneath it, a swarm of hearts, hug emojis, fire emojis. Comments from people who didn't even know I existed 2 weeks ago. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. What I felt was colder than anger, sharper than betrayal. It was recognition. She was going to burn me down with curated sadness. Not through courts. Not through lawyers. No, that would require actual facts. She was going to bury me in optics. And social media? That was the judge, jury, and executioner. She posted again a few hours later. New pose, same swollen eyes. "It's not about the lies. It's about the silence. Dramatic, fake, and just enough truth to sound convincing." One of her old friends commented, "You always gave him too much. I told you." Another, "We saw it coming. You deserve peace." Then came the paragraph-long sympathy poems. A tagged mental health coach. And a GoFundMe link? Seriously? I said nothing. Didn't post. Didn't comment. Didn't even text her. I did exactly what I always do when Rachel makes a scene. I took notes. Screenshotted everything. Saved the captions, usernames, timestamps. I wanted the whole show because she was putting on a performance, and I intended to keep the receipts. And right around that 6th screenshot, while she posed in the mirror, tears perfectly caught in golden morning light, it hit me. More than 97% of people who hear stories like this never subscribe. Which is a shame because if you're still here reading, you get it. You've lived some version of this. Supporting the team by subscribing? That lets us tell more stories people actually need to hear. Stories with no filters. Just the ugly, silent truth. Back to Rachel. She'd even used one of my sweaters in the second photo. Draped over her like a corpse shroud, probably thinking it'd twist the knife deeper. "Look at what I've lost," the image screamed. "Look at the monster who left me." But here's the thing. I didn't leave her. Not then. Not in the way she made it sound. What she failed to mention in her little performance piece was that she'd been quietly emptying the house weeks before. Boxes in the garage. Her name removed from the utility bills. She thought I wouldn't notice the subtle dismantling. Like I was some dumb mule she could just lead along until she'd fully morphed into a victim and I was safely cast as the villain. And it almost worked. That's what people don't get. How easy it is to become the bad guy in someone else's story when you don't clap back. When you don't defend. When you don't scream. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to explain. Because explaining is what guilty people do. Instead, I stared at her photos. The captions. The sudden outpouring of support from people who'd never asked a single question about our marriage. I watched as the comments built their own story. One woman even wrote, "This reminds me of my ex, silent, manipulative, cold. You're not alone." That one made me laugh. Because the only cold I'd ever shown Rachel was when I stopped fixing her lies. And so I went quiet. Not weak. Not passive. Just quiet. That's what really scares people like her. Silence that isn't begging for approval. Silence that isn't trying to fix anything. Silence that has a plan. I backed out of every chat, archived our shared albums, set my phone to Do Not Disturb, and opened a folder on my desktop. Rachel's. Inside, I started saving everything. Every caption. Every tag. Every face that chimed in with blind loyalty. Because I wasn't going to win by arguing. I wasn't even going to fight. I was going to let her walk into her own trap, one crying selfie at a time. By Monday morning, the knives were out, and sharpened by people who hadn't spoken to either of us since the wedding. I wasn't shocked by the first wave. The usual suspects. Rachel's yoga friends, a few of her coworkers with digital messiah complexes, one guy who used to flirt with her under recipe reels. But when my cousin Jared unfollowed me, that stung. We grew up sharing bunk beds. He DJ'd our wedding. And yet, one cryptic post and a few edited photos later, he decided I was radioactive. No call, no question, just gone. Same with Paul and Tessa, the couple we used to do game nights with. Suddenly, I'm out of the group chat. I didn't leave, someone removed me. No explanation. Just a digital cold shoulder wrapped in emojis. Rachel knew what she was doing. This wasn't grief. It was narrative construction. Every sad girl post was bait. Every black and white filter a weapon. She tagged me in a new one around lunchtime. Caption read, "Healing isn't linear, especially when the person still pretends nothing happened. Nice touch, passive-aggressive and performative in equal measure." Her followers didn't disappoint. What a coward. Men like him don't change. You're so brave. Brave? For taking selfies in a candlelit room with a throw blanket and half a bottle of Pinot? Still, I didn't engage. I saw the likes. The DMs she left public so she could repost them as support. She was stage managing her own martyrdom, one reply at a time. But what she didn't know, what they never know, is how loud silence can be when you fill it with facts. I started taking stock. I didn't block anyone. I didn't unfriend, unfollow, or even mute. I wanted the data. I wanted to see who believed her without asking questions, who needed no context, who wanted to feel like a hero just for typing "you deserve better." I cataloged names. I archived screenshots. I made notes. Not for revenge. Not yet. For truth inventory. People forget, the internet never forgets. Especially when you keep your hands clean. The old college group chat was the final straw. "Rachel's been through enough," someone wrote. "Maybe give her some space." I hadn't messaged the group in weeks. I posted one photo, me hiking alone, and suddenly I'm the insensitive one. I didn't argue. I didn't type paragraphs. I just left. No drama. No announcement. Just gone. But before I did, I sent one DM. To Cal, my roommate from senior year. He and I once got drunk in a blizzard and built a snowbar on campus. He was best man at our wedding. And he hadn't commented on anything yet. I wrote, "You know me. Let's talk later." He replied 10 minutes later. Already cleared my evening. I knew something felt off. One ember. Still warm. You want to know what real power feels like? It's not screaming into the void. It's knowing you could detonate everything and choosing not to. It's watching someone desperately try to shape a public fantasy while you calmly prepare private facts. Rachel, meanwhile, kept pouring it on. Her next post was some old photo of us on vacation. Cropped so only she was visible, wind in her hair, ocean behind her. Caption, "I fought for us. He fought to be right. Jesus." It was like watching a soap opera write itself. Her coworker popped in. "He never deserved you." Another replied, "Time to heal, not explain." And I thought, yeah, explaining would really wreck your little sympathy parade, wouldn't it? I made myself a cup of coffee, opened the shared Google Drive from our marriage counseling days and downloaded the summaries. Notes from our therapist, timestamps, action plans, Rachel's own written admission that she struggled with narrative control and passive emotional manipulation. I smiled. Not because I had some grand revenge plan, not yet, but because I knew exactly what she'd forgotten, that in her crusade to win over the world, she'd left a breadcrumb trail of unforced errors, and all I had to do was follow it. In silence. The first real conversation I had wasn't with a friend, wasn't with a therapist, wasn't even with a lawyer. It was with her father. He called me Tuesday morning, voice tight, like he'd smoked 3 cigarettes just trying to decide whether or not to dial. "Can we meet?" he asked. No pleasantries, no attempt to sound neutral. Just you and me. Somewhere quiet. We met at the old diner off Route 29, the one with the Formica tables and cracked leather booths she used to complain about. Her dad liked it because no one from his golf club ever showed up there. "Nobody eavesdrops when the hash browns taste like gravel," he used to joke. Not that he was joking now. He was already seated when I walked in. No smile. No handshake. Just a single nod toward the opposite side of the booth. I sat. He slid the laminated menu aside like it was in the way of something heavier. "She's telling everyone you ghosted her. Said you shut down emotionally. Left her to rot," he said flatly, like reading a bad review from a disappointed investor. "She says you were emotionally cold, withholding, controlling." I nodded. "She's building her version. People are believing it," he added. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a flash drive, set it gently on the table. "Then they might want to see this." He didn't touch it, just stared at it like it was radioactive. I leaned back and slid my phone across the table, opened a folder, titled plainly, Context. First, the receipts, literal and digital. Hotel bookings under her name in cities I hadn't visited. Restaurant bills for two when she told me she was on solo trips to clear her head. Timestamps that didn't match her stories. Venmo notes sent to someone named N, with heart emojis and inside jokes I'd never heard before. Then came the screenshots. Her text to me, late at night, asking me to give her space while she worked through trust issues. Sent from the same city where she was booked for a spa weekend with someone else. I showed the calendar invites, hers. Counseling appointments missed. Excuses made. Running late. Not feeling well. You can go alone. Then, the follow-up emails from our therapist. Still hoping Rachel will attend next session. Her presence is important. I didn't say much. Just flipped through screen after screen, letting the timeline do the talking. At some point, he stopped blinking. His jaw had tightened, somewhere between shame and disappointment. But he didn't interrupt. The last thing I showed him was a photo from a week before she moved out. Her standing in the hallway, half her jewelry box missing, wearing the same hoodie she wore in her crying selfie. Same lighting. Same window. I didn't comment, just zoomed in on the timestamp. 3 weeks before she told anyone I left. He exhaled, sat back, took a sip of the coffee he hadn't touched until then. It had gone cold. Finally, he spoke. She always thought the internet could protect her. I nodded. She ever tell you about the time she made her sister look like the bad guy in high school? Photoshopped text messages. Got the whole family to ice her out. Took 3 years to undo that. No, she had not. He looked tired. Older than when I married his daughter. She gets this idea in her head, he said, rubbing his temple. And once she decides she's the victim, the rest of the world's just props. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I'm not saying I'm on your side, he added after a pause. But I needed to see this. Because I was starting to think. He shook his head. Never mind. No, I said quietly. You were starting to think she might be telling the truth. He didn't deny it. As we stood to leave, he glanced at the flash drive again, then finally picked it up. She's going to hate that we spoke. She'll never know, I said. Unless you tell her. He looked at me like he wanted to ask something more, but he didn't. Just tucked the drive into his coat pocket and walked out into the cold. It wasn't vindication. Not yet. But it was a start. A fault line in her carefully constructed narrative. And I had no intention of stopping there. One crack is all you need if you know where to push next. The package was delivered Tuesday afternoon. Anonymous? Clean envelope. No return address. Just her company's name written in black Sharpie. I timed it that way on purpose. Not too soon after the selfie barrage. Let her enjoy the false glow a little longer before I opened the first real door beneath her feet. Inside were 18 printed pages. I didn't bother going overboard, just enough. Selective truth, trimmed to perfection. Every page documented a quiet little breach. Personal photo edits on her work laptop, cloud storage metadata from the retouched selfies she posted over the weekend, and internal Slack logs from a private group chat she and 2 coworkers ran, where she casually name-dropped high-value clients. Nothing overtly malicious, just loose-lipped gossip and time-stamped vanity. But enough for HR to raise an eyebrow, especially in her industry, where NDA violations don't get second chances. I never used her name. Didn't need to. The screenshots were labeled only by date and platform. The package cover page simply read, "For internal review, usage discrepancies." She'd painted me as controlling, as distant, as someone who didn't support her career. But here's the thing, Rachel didn't just want a supportive husband. She wanted an audience. Her job at a mid-tier marketing firm wasn't glamorous, but she sure made it look that way. Stylized desk shots, conference selfies, hashtags like #bossbabe and #grindneverstops. She'd once told a friend, "My Instagram is my portfolio, so I let it speak for itself." By late afternoon, her company's internal system pinged her with a meeting request. "Please come to HR tomorrow at 9:15 a.m. Attendance required." No subject line, no emoji. She must have felt the shift because by 6 p.m., she posted again. Another emotional broadside. This one less poetic, more pointed. Betrayal doesn't stop at home. It leaks into every part of your life, especially when people pretend to care. That one got maybe a third of the likes the first ones did. The drop was noticeable. Comments were quieter too. Less fire emojis. More silence. A few sending strength types. But no one tagged her. No resharing. No rallying. The temperature was changing. She posted a second time that night. Less filtered this time. She looked tired. Makeup a little smudged. A wine glass just barely out of frame. Caption read, "Some people smile while they ruin you. That's the scariest part." That post got 12 comments. Only one from someone outside her usual crowd. And it wasn't a friend. It was a local boutique she used to partner with. "Hey, can we reschedule our shoot this week? Hope you're doing okay." I bet she stared at that one longer than the others. It wasn't a collapse. Not yet. Just slippage. Like a chair leg slowly giving out under weight you didn't realize you were placing on it. And the worst part for her? I never said a word. Never posted. Never hinted. She couldn't even accuse me of sabotage without revealing she had something to be sabotaged for. Meanwhile, I was still cataloging. The HR packet wasn't a bomb, it was a whisper. Enough to start a fire inside the building. Let her feel the pressure in her sacred space. The workplace. Her curated kingdom of planners, pastel mugs, and motivational quotes. She always said her career saved her from being just someone's wife. So I let her wonder if that career still wanted her. At 9:47 p.m. that night, she posted a quote card. White background. Cursive text. "The truth always finds its way, but so does malice." No context. No tags. Just that. It got 31 likes. That's it. I screenshotted it anyway, because every crack matters. Especially the ones she starts to notice. The reservation was for 7 o'clock. A trendy bistro downtown. Exposed brick, overpriced wine flights, and a menu full of things that sound like food but read like resumes. Rachel's choice, obviously. The kind of place with low lighting perfect for pretending your life's still on track. She arrived wearing what she called her soft armor, cream blouse, expensive earrings, slightly tousled hair that took a stylist 45 minutes to achieve. The goal was simple: look untouched, undamaged, post-divorce glow, with just enough sadness to keep the sympathy flowing. The table was mostly hers, former coworkers, friends from college, people she used to post with under hashtags like #squad and #WineWednesday. They hadn't seen me in months, and I'd made no effort to keep in touch. On purpose. I needed distance. Space for the pressure to build where it mattered, behind closed doors. And tonight, the air was loaded. She played the part beautifully at first. Charming, warm, just a touch wounded. The kind of pain that garners attention but doesn't repel it. She told a story about rediscovering herself, complete with dramatic pauses and euphemisms like, "stepping into my power." She laughed about how hard it was living with someone who doesn't know how to show up emotionally. Everyone nodded, until she added casually, "But hey, I always knew he had secrets." And that's when the temperature dropped. The woman 2 seats down, Erica, I think, set down her wine glass just a bit too carefully. Her face didn't change, but the silence around her did. And Rachel, too busy performing, didn't notice. "Secrets?" someone echoed, playing along, probably hoping to steer it back to harmless gossip. Rachel smiled, cocked her head. "You know, just things that don't add up. Like, when someone swears they're working late, but their calendar says otherwise. Or when texts go missing." She sipped her drink like it was a punchline. That's when Erica spoke again. "I've seen the texts," she said, not loud but loud enough. Rachel blinked. Erica didn't flinch, just kept her tone even. "The real ones. Screenshots. With timestamps. From him. They don't match what you said." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was surgical. Everyone froze. Forks paused midair. The music kept playing, ambient and indifferent. Rachel's smile faltered. Just slightly. Enough for the mask to shift. "What texts?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light. "The ones about the business trip," Erica replied. "And the weekend you said he disappeared. You told us he left you alone. Remember? But the messages show you were the one who turned off your phone. For 2 days. While he was home." Someone coughed. Someone else sipped water. Rachel tried to recover. "You know how texts can be edited. And he's really good with tech." But even she didn't believe it. Another voice, this one from the end of the table, muttered, "That's not what you said last month." No one replied. No one needed to. The room had shifted. The foundation she'd built her whole performance on, unquestioned loyalty, shared indignation, was now fragile, full of hairline cracks. Rachel reached for her purse. "I just remembered. I've got an early call tomorrow," she said, rising from her seat like she hadn't just been emotionally tackled in the middle of a curated sympathy circle. She tried to laugh it off. Too much wine, not enough sleep. No one argued. No one offered to walk her out. She left the table with half a plate untouched, and the same look she used to give when her social media posts didn't hit the engagement numbers she wanted. Tight-lipped, eyes scanning for someone to blame. And here's the part that mattered most. I didn't orchestrate that dinner. I hadn't asked Erica to say anything. I hadn't prepped anyone. All I did was tell the truth to one or two people who mattered and waited. That's the thing about real truth. You don't have to scream it. Just whisper it in the right ears and let the silence carry it the rest of the way. Rachel never posted about that dinner. Not a selfie. Not a plate pic. Not a single tag. Which told me everything I needed to know. The Whisper network was alive, and she was losing it. The post was exactly 214 words. Not a single adjective. No exclamation points. Just dates, times, screenshots, and receipts. It went live Wednesday afternoon at 3:27 p.m. inside the private community group for our neighborhood, populated mostly by volunteers, dog walkers, retirees, and the kind of people who argue about leaf blower noise but still wave when they pass you on the street. We used to volunteer there together, organized park cleanups, ran the charity bake sale 2 years in a row. Rachel even spearheaded the pet adoption day last summer and used it as content for her social media reel, slow-motion shots of her cuddling a rescue cat, set to soft piano music. She was liked in that group, maybe even loved, which is why I chose it. I didn't rant, didn't accuse. I opened with this. This isn't about drama. It's about clarity. There's been a narrative shared recently that doesn't match the facts. I'm not here to win favor, just to restore some balance, quietly and respectfully. Then I laid out the dates. The trip she claimed I skipped to punish her emotionally, with receipts showing she'd booked her own solo spa weekend a month before. The counseling sessions she said I refused to attend, paired with email confirmations from our therapist noting she'd canceled 3 in a row. The anniversary dinner she claimed I ruined with silence, with a time-stamped photo of her at a wine bar that same night, laughing with someone else. No embellishment, no venom, just evidence. I ended the post with, "This will be my only comment on the matter. Feel free to message me privately if needed. Wishing peace to everyone involved." First, nothing. A few emoji reactions. 1 or 2 scene indicators. Then, 20 minutes later, a comment. "This doesn't match what she told us." Then another. "I remember that week. She said she was sick. Not at a resort." And then came the turning point. A woman named Sharon, former PDA president, master of passive-aggressive politeness, wrote, "If even half of this is accurate, then I feel misled. Deeply." That cracked the dam. By 7 p.m., the thread had nearly 60 comments. Most were cautious, diplomatic. Nobody wanted to look like they'd picked the wrong side too quickly. But they were reading, asking questions, cross-referencing. Some even went back to Rachel's earlier posts, which were still up at that point, and started comparing captions with the timeline I'd posted. A man I barely knew messaged me privately, "I don't know either of you that well, but thank you for how you handled this. That was professional. Professional. Not vindictive. Not dramatic. Not hysterical." By 8:40 p.m., Rachel's posts started disappearing. First the one with the quote card about malice in silence. Then the crying selfie carousel. Then the one with the sweater, the one she wore in that manipulated "he left me" narrative. Gone. One by one. Like bricks being quietly removed from a crumbling wall. I didn't screenshot their disappearance. I didn't gloat. I just watched. Because the real power wasn't in what I posted, it was in what I didn't need to say. No hashtags. No followers. No curated angles. Just the kind of truth that doesn't need to be shouted to be understood. And in that quiet, factual thread, her reputation, carefully styled and algorithmically inflated, started to unravel. Not in front of a million strangers, but in front of 37 neighbors who once brought her brownies and shared their dog-sitting schedules. That was the moment I knew the momentum had shifted. She'd built a castle on stories. I brought a flashlight. The company didn't even use her name. That was the best part. It showed up Thursday morning, just past 10 a.m., on the internal Slack bulletin and then again, word for word, in an all-staff email that followed a few minutes later. Subject line, Policy clarification, resource use, and client privacy. Buried halfway down the message was the line that mattered. We've completed an internal review regarding the misuse of digital tools, client-sensitive data, and personal content creation during work hours. Appropriate action has been taken in line with company policy. That was it. No fanfare, no naming, just cold, bureaucratic conclusion. The kind that says, we saw what you did, we don't need to explain ourselves, and you don't get to spin this either. And yet, everyone knew who it was about. I didn't leak anything. I never do. But I'd noticed something beautiful the night before. Someone from her office had liked my community group post. Just a little thumbs-up emoji, buried under 67 other reactions. But that was enough. That meant the whisper had made it to her job. Through back channels. Through the quiet. By lunch, screenshots of the email started circulating. People added context. Her nickname came up. A few group DMs speculated what she'd done. She's been off all week. Heard she's not coming to Friday's client call. Didn't she say she had a breakdown? And somewhere in the middle of it all, Rachel tried to preempt the storm. Again. She posted to her professional profile, LinkedIn this time, a platform she once used to brand herself as resilient, empathic, strategic. The same page that once had a banner image of her smiling during a Zoom panel, framed by fake bookshelves and a carefully curated mug. This time, no banner. Just a plain text post. When you're being targeted, sometimes the silence around you is the loudest cruelty. I've given everything to my work, and to be dismissed without truth is devastating. 2 likes, no shares, 0 comments. I checked the profile of her work friend, Mia, the same friend who'd left a "you deserve better" comment on one of Rachel's earlier crying selfies. Mia had removed the comment. Her page was quiet. No mention of Rachel anywhere. Another crack. An hour later, Rachel tried again. This time on her Instagram stories. She posted a black screen with white text. I'm being silenced. When truth threatens power, this is what happens. She tagged no one, but the implication was obvious. She was now shifting her story from betrayed wife to wronged employee. The pivot was messy, desperate. You could see the anxiety in every word. The replies? Non-existent. No flame emojis. No clapping hands. Just silence. She posted a follow-up an hour later. A grainy, overexposed shot of her cat curled up on her laptop. Caption. Trying to find peace. Trying to stay soft. I didn't even save that one, because it wasn't necessary. By now, the people she feared disappointing, her colleagues, her professional peers, her carefully curated audience of strong women rising together, were already stepping away, not because they were cruel, but because her version had stopped making sense. Because even the most forgiving audiences eventually ask the question, wait, why does every version of this story make her the victim? And once they ask that, the entire house starts creaking. Her image, painstakingly shaped through filters and angles and just the right amount of self-deprecation, was now unstable. Not shattered. Not yet. But cracked. Fragile. And the worst part for her? No one had even named her. She was unraveling in public, completely on her own. The call came on a Friday morning, mid-coffee, mid-email, mid-not caring. Unknown number. Normally I wouldn't have picked up. But something in me said answer. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that gut sense you get when the temperature in the room shifts before the weather does. Hey, the voice said. You don't know me directly, but I run a podcast called Lakeview Stories. You've probably heard of it. I had local thing, soft-voiced host, weekly episodes about community drama, relationship advice, messy divorces, town hall feuds. Think NPR meets Reddit with a splash of wine mom gossip. Rachel used to listen to it while pretending to work on her vision board. The host continued, calm and non-judgmental. I've gotten some conflicting accounts about a certain situation. I was wondering if you wanted to go on record. Share your side. I almost laughed. Not bitterly, just at the irony of it all. That after all the staged tears, the curated captions, the weaponized quotes, someone finally wanted my voice. No, I said. Silence. Off the record? He asked. Just to fill in the blanks? I'm not interested in framing anything, I said. But I do have documents. If you want to read them. Pause. I'd appreciate that. So I sent a folder. Nothing dramatic. No manifesto. Just labeled PDFs. Timeline.pdf. Correspondence_Augustjan.pdf. Therapy_memories. PDF. Calendar underscore overlap circumflex. XLSX. No commentary. No opinions. Just facts. Boring. Brutal. Unfiltered truth. He thanked me. Said he'd follow up. I told him not to bother. 3 days later, a new episode dropped. When narrative meets evidence. The title alone was surgical. I didn't listen to it right away. Didn't need to. But people did. The podcast never used names. Never identified places or specific roles. But if you knew our story, hell, if you'd been within 5 blocks of it, you knew exactly who it was about. The episode opened with a simple line. This story begins with a series of posts. Emotional, powerful, and one-sided. But what happens when we follow the timestamps instead of the tears? He didn't editorialize. Just walked through a neutral timeline. One voice. One pace. Calm. Clinical. Dates. Contradictions. Receipts. And most damning of all, the therapist's line from a session summary that read, subject frequently redirects accountability by reshaping events emotionally rather than factually. Partner remains calm, yet is framed as disengaged. That quote echoed. Social media lit up, but in an odd, muted way. People shared the podcast not with outrage, but with curiosity. Captioned it with things like, interesting listen. Made me rethink a few things. Truth, performance. No pitchforks. No viral tsunami. Just steady erosion. Rachel posted once that night. A blurry photo of her walking down a street. Head turned away from the camera. Captioned, you think you know, but you don't. No hashtags. No tags. And most noticeable, no comments enabled. It was the first time I saw her disable replies. Because the replies weren't coming in how they used to. No more stay strong, or he doesn't deserve you. Just silence. And silence speaks loudest when you've been shouting for weeks. She didn't acknowledge the episode. Didn't even hint at it. But her inner circle did. Mia, the coworker, unfollowed her. Erica, from the dinner party, reposted the podcast with a headphones emoji. Rachel's cousin, who once reshared her crying selfie with, "We got you girl," posted a quote that day instead. Truth is like a lion. Let it loose, it will defend itself. That one stuck with me. I didn't celebrate, didn't smile, didn't spike the football, because this wasn't a win. It was a correction. The record hadn't been set straight with fire or fury, but with documents, with context, with quiet, devastating restraint. And for the first time, I was the ghost in the story. The unnamed figure who didn't fight back, who just waited. And when the narrative finally shifted, it didn't need my voice. Just my evidence. By the end of the week, her following bled out like a slow leak no one bothered to plug. It didn't crash, it dissolved. One quiet unfollow at a time. Like dust being swept from a floor that wasn't ever truly clean. She'd built that audience from scratch. Rachel had always treated social media like it was her second job. Sometimes her real job. The lighting setups. The self-timers. The curated vulnerability. She once scheduled a post about grief to go live during her uncle's funeral. Captioned, some pain doesn't speak, but it screams. Except the photo was a filtered shot of her clutching a coffee mug, looking out a window that didn't belong to that house. I remember because she took it at ours 3 days before the service. People loved it, but love on the internet is brittle, and memory is short right until it's not. On Friday morning, she was still hovering around 52,000 followers. By the time I checked again that night, she was down to 39,800. By the next day, it was under 30. I didn't need to refresh again. I already knew where it was going. The comment sections that used to be her safety net had become something else entirely. Not an ambush. Not trolling. Just questions. The worst kind. Why didn't you mention the work stuff? Wait, I thought you said he left you? I listened to the podcast. Something's off here. You told us he ghosted you, but there were texts. No insults. Just fractures. And people don't stick around to build homes on fractured ground. She posted another story Friday evening. Black background. No filter. White Arial font. Social media is not reality. Please be kind. That one got 14 replies. 3 from bots. Then came the post. The final selfie. A mirror shot. Natural light. No makeup. Not even pretending anymore. The Rachel I knew when we first met, before she learned how to edit her face to match an algorithm. She wasn't crying. No puffy eyes. No smirk. No pose. Caption, I made mistakes. That was it. No dramatic punctuation. No but attached. Just those 3 words hanging in silence. It didn't go viral. No quotes overlaid. No carousel. She didn't even tag it. I stared at it longer than I expected to. Not out of pity. Not out of triumph. Just recognition. She finally ran out of script. By the end of the day, the post sat at 214 likes. Less than 1% engagement. No comments. Not because she turned them off this time. Just, no one had anything left to say. Even her sister, Caroline, the one who used to like and repost every single thing Rachel ever uploaded, shared the podcast that evening on her own profile. No caption. Just the link. And then one line. The truth matters. That was the moment. Not the HR email. Not the podcast. Not the community thread. That was the collapse. Because you can survive being called out by strangers. You can even survive being exposed by an ex. But when someone from your own bloodline, someone who stood by you through drama, divorce, and disaster, chooses the facts over the performance, that's not a cut. That's a sever. I didn't message her. Didn't like the post. Didn't screenshot it. I didn't need to. The post didn't need an audience. It was the echo of a stage gone quiet. For a woman who lived by attention, silence wasn't just a punishment. It was extinction. The fundraiser was held at the old conservatory on the edge of town, the kind of glass-paneled, high-ceiling venue she used to gush over. Rachel had been on the planning committee 3 years in a row, insisted on themed cocktail menus and professional photographers. She once said, "It's not just a cause, it's a canvas." I showed up that night in a navy blazer she'd once told me made me look too serious. I wore it anyway. People forget. Seriousness isn't a flaw. It's just focus in a quieter form. The moment I stepped inside, I felt the difference. It wasn't that the room changed, but the energy did. Warm handshakes, firm eye contact, those subtle nods people give when they've already made up their mind about you, and it's good. "Glad you made it," someone said. "You doing okay?" From another. Even a clap on the back from Mr. Lawton, who once sat next to Rachel at every event and practically treated her like local royalty. But the one that landed hardest came from a woman I barely knew. Name tag said Elaine. Soft smile. Wine glass in hand. She leaned in just enough to keep it private. "We're glad you didn't stoop to it," she said. I nodded once. Not because I was humble, but because the truth didn't need a parade. Just space. The speeches droned on. The band played jazz covers of pop songs no one asked for. I made a donation quietly and slipped out just after dessert. No photos. No lingering. No need. And that's when the message came in. "Rachel, you ruined me." 3 words. No context. No punctuation. Just that. She'd waited until the evening's end. Maybe she knew I'd be there. Maybe someone told her. Or maybe she was sitting in her apartment alone, refreshing her inbox, waiting to see if the silence would finally break. I stared at the screen. No rage. No adrenaline. Just clarity. I typed back one sentence. "You did that yourself." Then I hit send. No read receipt. No reply. No reaction. But I didn't need one. Because that wasn't a conversation. It was a mirror. She had spent months crafting a tragedy around herself, editing real events into fiction, turning sympathy into currency. And I'd responded with nothing but restraint. Truth served in pieces. Facts released with surgical timing. No outbursts. No drama. No war. Just exposure. Measured. Controlled. Untraceable. She wanted an enemy. I gave her reflection. And that, in the end, was the cruelest justice. Because now, when she looks back on all of it, the silence, the fallout, the cold absence of defenders, she'll never be able to blame me with certainty. She'll wonder which piece undid her. Who talked? Which thread pulled first? And I'll never confirm a thing. The house of mirrors collapsed. Not by fire, but by stillness. And the sound of her own voice echoing too long with no one left to listen.